Alright, so I'm going to start turning cardboard into metal. I'm going to lay out the front and the back ends first. I got all the bolts and everything so I can lay those together to get final measurements for the top. But I'm going to start there. Alright, so my phone died in the middle of cutting these out. So I got these cut out. Let's just 3/16 plate. I got to go through, drill all the holes and stuff still. But I realized that I never went over really what I was doing, or at least I don't think I did. So I'll kind of go over that real quick here. Alright, so what I'm doing, I'm building swing set steering for my Ranger, which is an A-arm truck. So traditionally your swing set is on like your I-beam, the older trucks, or maybe on like a solid axle truck. You don't typically see it on the A-arm trucks unless it's like a center mount setup. But basically what's going on is the steering racks in these trucks are not very good, especially when you start running big tires on them. So what I'm doing, I've got the center link, which is what I'm starting to build out now. It'll be connected to these swingers and then to the frame, and then I'll have a steering box out of a 90s F-150 somewhere in here. I haven't really figured out exactly where yet. And then that'll all be connected probably to this swinger over here. And then as you turn, that center link will move back and forth on those swingers, and then you'll have your tie rods that are going to come off of, they'll be in here, and they'll run from your center link to your tie rod or to your spindle. So significantly stronger than a rack and pinion setup in these trucks. Nobody really makes a kit, so I'm having to build it myself. But that's half the fun of building these kinds of things, is figuring out how to build it and doing having to figure out all the geometry and all that. So, and then as far as hardware goes, these heim joints are going to be my inner tie rod, essentially. So they're going to go on the ends of the center link. So they'll go, one will be there, one will be there, and then I've got like 4 of these bushings. These would be what all the pivots for the swingers and everything will be in. So one will be there, one will be over here, and then I'll have another piece of tubing in the middle just as a support. It'll go all the way through, and then this other piece obviously will sit up on top. These are polyurethane bushings, which you don't want to use in steering because they have a lot of give to them. So what I'll do is I'll mock it up with these polyurethanes, and then I'll go to a lathe and cut a set of Delrins, or see if I can find a set of Delrin bushings that are this size. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I gotta drill all my holes in these front and back plates, and then bolt it all up and start cutting out the top. The top and the bottom solid, so that should be a pretty easy piece to cut out. I am going to have to come in here and kind of notch a little bit out, because that heim hits right in the middle. So I'll put a little radius in there, and that should give it a nice look and allow it to clear the heim joint. Alright, so got everything drilled up. I've got, this is just set in here, nothing's welded yet. But I think, it's a little short, just barely. I think it'll be alright. By the time I weld, probably do inside and run a bead along the edge and then just kind of grind that edge flat. It should be good. The bushing fits in there. It's not, it's not like it's gonna do anything super crazy for the bushing. There is a little bit of a gap in there, but I can always close that up if I need to when I make my Delrin bushings. So I think I'm gonna go with that, and then there'll be I'll cut a piece of tubing to go in here. It'll essentially just be like one of these, but I'm not gonna use a bushing in there, so I'll just use a regular piece of tubing that I've already got some. So that'll be there. That's just to give it some support so it doesn't want to like fold in the middle, and then do the top and bottom plates. I got the center link tacked up this evening. I did put the tops and the bottoms on just temporarily to keep everything square, but I'll have to pull them back off when I go to weld all these sleeves in, because I'm going to weld those on the inside and on the outside. So the next step is going to be the swingers that come off of these. So I spent the evening making my swinger plates, getting those started. This is all just 3/16. I've got 4 of them, so I got a front and a rear for each side. They're just double stick taped together, so I could grind them all down and them all be the same. This big end here, that's going to be for my bushing sleeve. And then this other end, that hole's got to come up still. That's going to become, I believe it's a 7/16, same as that hole. So that'll bolt on in there. Actually go this way. That'll go in there, and then hopefully get these taken apart and deburred and get the whole other holes drilled up. Start mocking it up on the truck later this week. Alright, so I'm running into a few problems on the steering. First one being on the swingers. I have them bolted in to the center link here, and the upper bushing, which I wanted to put on the swinger, the swinger's too wide, which means I'm probably better off just drilling holes in this, rebuilding these, and instead of doing this cutout, I'll just put a hole in it, kind of like this end, and then this bushing will go on the mount on the frame side. But I'm having issues there too. Alright, so over here on the frame side, thinking about moving the mount up, and that's going to give my swinger a longer distance, which makes the radius of the circle it's going to try to create as it swings going to be a longer radius. So there's going to be less rise in the center link as it cycles. I'm also running into an issue with my steering box, which is going to have to be horizontal so the pitman arm clears the frame. And it also helps the geometry between the pitman arm, the drag link, and the center link. But the steering shaft coming off the front of here is going to run into the top of the mount. So I'm going to have to notch the mount out. So to know how much to notch the mount, I'm going to have to know what steering shaft I'm going to run. So that's my current dilemma.